stated in motion.
The chair votes yes for the reason. Okay, I'm going to read all four of these in.
Yeah, because
okay.
just for the benefit of the public, don't anticipate a motion one way or another on these four. They were, and I think we talked about this at the conclusion of the last meeting, they were put on today's agenda for discussion. And so that, since they're all somewhat intermingled, so that we can have an open discussion, what we're going to do, and what Mr. Wheatley's alluded to, is we're going to read all four of them and then just talk about it.
We're going to discuss them the same way that we did the hearing. So this would be change of zone number 2025, Northstar Properties, LLC. Change of zone number 2026, Northstar Properties, LLC. Subdivision 2023-14, Northstar Property, LLC. And conditional use number 2499. Northstar Property LLC. Okay, who would like to start?
Well, let me start with one thing, because there was a question about the TID and phasing and how that would potentially impact the timing of Mulberry Knoll Road. I mean, it was somewhat of a high-level question, and that was whether the TID or the master agreement between Sussex County and DelDOT itself prohibited phasing or, time requirements for roadway constructions like Mulberry Knoll Road. And one of the reasons that was brought up during the testimony, and then I recalled that also came into question on another project, Scenic Manor, which is ironically on the other end of Mulberry Knoll Road, and it had to do with the intersection there, and the commission originally required that that intersection of the traffic light there be installed before certain work could occur in that Scenic Manor subdivision. So I was concerned that there was a prohibition against phasing. So there's not in the TID agreement between Sussex County and DelDOT. But what we need to be careful about, and I think if this is going to be approved, and I'm not saying it is, but if it is, we need to make sure that whatever time frames are in place, if there are going to be time frames for the construction of that phase of Mulberry Knoll Road, are spelled out clearly, and it also states that they have to be referenced in the developer agreement for the TID, and that's a three-way agreement between the developer, Sussex County, and DelDOT, so that it's clear not only in the conditions of approval, but also in that contract between the three parties under the TID. So that was a long way of saying there's no prohibition against tying road construction to phasing, but that it also needs to be clearly documented, not only in condition, but in the TID agreement.
Do you agree also that we are limited with how we can even approach the timing, because ultimately it's going to be what's DelDOT doing on their end?
Well, we are, but we can also put trigger points still, and if they're not met, they're not met, and so at that point, if the applicant is behind schedule or whatever and they haven't hit their mark, they'd have to stop. If DelDOT hangs them up, they'd have to stop. So at that point, if there is a trigger that's not satisfied, then no more building permits or whatever is written into it, or it would have to be modified. But I would say this, though, I think that probably everybody in this room, including the commission and county staff and the public even, if this is going to get approved, we want that road to be done fast,
I agree.
And so I think built into this would be also leverage that the county hopefully could put on DelDOT to streamline it, to get it done,
Yes, I agree.
I mean, I know I don't have the magic words yet for that or what we do, but I think that's an important part of that, because everybody has an expectation that's not going to get hung up in some bureaucracy,
I concur.
Me too.
Yeah, I completely support doing a timeline on it and getting that road done first.
What is the typical timeline for creating that sort of agreement? Would we move forward with approvals here if we were to do it contingent on those being put in place?
Yeah, and it would have to be, because the TID agreement would have to be in place, really before final and certainly before any construction happens. So, and the reason that it has to be clear in the conditions that the TID agreement with the developer and DelDOT and the county needs to state this is because that TID agreement, the way it's set up, doesn't come back to the commission. That just goes to county council. So we, just need to make sure that it doesn't get missed along the way. That this is a requirement, because that's kind of what happened in Scenic Manor. in that one, there was that condition imposed, and everybody was fine with it. And then the agreement got executed between Sussex County, the developer, and DelDOT on that one. And the agreement said there cannot be any timing conditions associated with the offsite work to be imposed. So that was in that agreement. The developer came back in and said, and it's not a developer in any way related to this one, or even any of the parties involved, but they said, well, it's in this agreement that you can't have a condition that ties us to, any time frame, so you got to eliminate that condition. And at that point, the cow was out of the barn because it had been agreed upon by county council and DelDOT. Mm-hmm. So, again, long answer, but the moral of the story is if that's going to happen, make it so that it has clear time frames and that mistake doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
So is staff going to confirm that the design as presented to the commission meets the open space?
You can take that one.
I believe staff might have proposed something alternative, right?
I didn't see that.
So
Yeah.
this was raised during the public hearing. Numerically, though, those lands are contiguously connected, as the applicant presented. So as presented during the hearing, there is a contiguous amount. So numerically, that box is checked. However, the comment that was raised during the public hearing was that, for practical purposes, those lands are quite fragmented.
Right.
Staff have looked at this, and this came up during pre-application discussions between staff and the applicant as to the best way to try to prevent fragmentation of those lands. There is sufficient room there to reconfigure those lots to shift. It's actually Road E, Road C, Road B, all of that could be reconfigured to have a greater contiguous area of open space. It might mean that lots 221 through 226 have to be relocated, but that can be done, and staff have worked that out. So.
Great, thank you. I think that the developer should do a fence for the horse farm because of the dangers that the owner of the horse farm presented to the commission.
And some kind of solid
Do a
fence.
A fence, you said. I thought you said do events.
I initially heard that too.
Did I offend you?
What, events?
Did I offend you, Mr. Chairman?
No, not at all. I think the fence is an excellent idea.
And I think they should post signs. The developer needs to post signs.
When we're from Sussex County, we run our words together.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about that, the Elks Lodge that is next door as well, I would like to require the developer, if there's anything if that sign has to be moved that they just that they just installed, that be at the expense of the developer, and put up a greater buffer along the Elks.
Agreed. And is the horse farm entitled to a larger buffer?
Well, they have a greater one anyways because it's agricultural.
There's a larger setback because it's an agricultural use, but that's just strictly a setback. That doesn't talk about, any kind of buffering. It's just the distance between that property line and improvements.
And if we could go back on the timeline of this construction of the whole thing, if it does get approved, I personally would like to see the affordable housing be complete first.
Oh, agreed.
Like that idea. I have a little bit of concern about how that's all being done. The affordable housing is all the way up in one corner. The people who live there can't use the amenities that are being built for everyone else. I just have some concern about that.
I agree.
I don't know what can or should be done. If some accommodation can be made, because I'm just thinking there's a kind of a fairness issue there, I guess. I mean, are they part of are they part of this or not? If it's not part of this, then why is it in here as part of this application?
Well, yeah, these kinds of amenities used to be provided as a public service through tax dollars.
Right.
We're essentially using HOAs to provide those now, and not providing them.
They provide them for the people that live there and the invitees of the people that live there. And the thing is do these people, do the folks in the affordable housing live there or not?
Well, since it's being presented all together, I would suggest that they do live there. But I would have a problem with their monthly rental being increased a lot to compensate for the HOA fees if they're going to throw them in there.
That, or they can just construct some amenities for them.
I agree with that more.
Comparable amenities.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not necessarily a clubhouse, because that would not be
Sure.
practical, but, you know, there are certainly other things that could be done.
Well, I think they proffered some type of building. They would do community things with the group that live in the affordable housing. So I say add a pool to that. Is what you're saying.
Well, I think that's, because that's going to be the attractive
Yep.
thing.
reasonable.
If it's affordable housing, it's likely that it's going to be younger families with kids. It's a hot day. What do the kids want to do? And do you want to be the one to explain to the 7-year-old why he can't go in that pool over there?
That would break my heart.
Yeah. So that's the issue I have with it. So anyway,
I agree. It's a concern.
the other, anything else?
On the affordable housing, I think we need to consider the expansion of the condition to be more specific.
Yeah, no, I know. That's a concern I have, just so that it's enforceable. We talked about that a little bit, but enforceable and trackable, I guess. I don't know if that's a word, you know, because right now it's, in what was proffered, it's not defined all that clearly. So, you know, and we get hung up in that, not in a bad way, but, you know, there's terms that are not defined, like workforce housing and affordable housing. Well, affordable housing could just mean less expensive than something else, and we want to make sure this is actually affordable housing, something, you know, not necessarily directly in line with what our SCRP program is, or, you know, housing authority funded programs or whatever, but something that really and truly provides affordable housing and that can be tracked by the county.
I agree.
And we've done that before. And I'm not saying this is a perfect model, but there was another development that was sort of mirrored our SCRP program, where we put, you know, annual just reporting requirements. And it wasn't onerous for the developer, and it wasn't onerous for county staff either, but at least that way there was an official means of tracking, you know, occupancy and just the demographics of folks that are there to make sure it's being adhered to.
What's our leverage if they don't comply for some reason in the future?
Building permits.
Yeah, building permits. And I think if, you know, and we haven't gotten to the point of drafting any conditions, but I would think there would be penalties, potentially financial ones, that would pay into our housing trust fund, you know, the difference between whatever it should be and what they collected or whatever. So at least if there is some remedy, it goes back into housing.
I vaguely remember some affordable housing being advertised once, and the billboard switching to luxury housing at one point. So I just have visions of that happening here.
The one other item that I think we need to address, and this is going to take some time, and it will take a motion, that I think we need some official input from the school system, and I think it might be wise for us to perhaps open the record for that purpose.
I agree.
Yeah, you know, we got the information that Ms. Wingate received from them, but my concern, and that certainly is helpful, my concern is that's not official. You know, like, this way we actually reach out to the school district and get their comment, whatever that may be, on it. And then
Well, if we open the record for that limited purpose, and we make a formal inquiry to them, to the school district, give them the opportunity to respond, then we got to give the applicant and the public an opportunity to respond. So I know it's going to be a little cumbersome, but I think it's something we need to do.
I agree.
I agree.
How about any interconnectivity between the subdivision and the C3, so cars don't have to travel to and from the subdivision on Mulberry Road? That may require some creativity from the engineer, but I think that's something that we need to ask that they consider.
I generally would be in favor of interconnectivity between those properties.
Would that be something that would come in the form of a condition if we approve it?
Right, it would, yeah. I mean, it would be a condition.
I agree with you, yeah.
A condition on the subdivision, and then that would tie into, if the C3 gets approved, you know, a site plan review on that later on. One thing, too, I'll just point out, there was one I saw, because it's something that we've dealt with and county engineering has dealt with, and this is a minor thing, but we've seen situations with open space where it's unclear how that open space is supposed to be maintained. And it's not that anything's incorrect or, or information's omitted, but we've started to see where developments are allowing, grassy areas to turn into more natural meadows. And, there's an expectation that's reasonable, I think, that some people think if it's open space, it's got to be, manicured lawn, whereas that may not be the intention. And I know that came up during the hearing about some of that being maintained as meadow. My only comment, and this is something also going forward, is that be clearly denoted on a plan so that inspections can be done and there's not.
I think that's the issue. The issue is that on the recorded site plan, it needs to say, because that's the point at which people start laying their money down based on what they're being told and sold. Okay. So it needs to be clear on the plan if it's going to be allowed to go to meadow, what it can be, what will it be used for. I mean, there are those who feel like open space should not be populated, shouldn't have people walking through it. It should just be there to be seen, admired, and just know that it's there. Others want it to be more active, have trails, be able to play ball or soccer or whatever you want to do. So those things are things that I think need to be worked out. Now later on, once the developer's gone, the HOA wants to do something different, there will be mechanisms for them to do that. So it's not like it can't ever be changed. But when people are buying something, they need to know what they're buying. Right. And they need to know, and this all speaks to this issue of predictability. Mm-hmm. That's at the heart and soul of what we do in zoning. So that's why we have zoning, to provide a certain measure of predictability, to make sure that an asphalt plant does not get built next to the daycare center. Okay, that's why we have it. There's got to be a certain certain amount of predictability. So that's what we need to make sure we provide.
That's all good points, Mr. Wheatley. And the meadow, then referring to the meadows, I'm seeing a lot in developments now, and I have it right in my own development, where a pond is behind my house, and they have started putting meadow area around it, which is, it's lovely. The butterflies love it. There are wildflowers that come up. But it's not in the middle of a field where the kids can't play ball. So there's certain areas I think it's wonderful for it, but not all open space.
It's certainly great for wildlife and.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
If you don't mind me interrupting, I have been working with the Department of Ag on some meadow ideas. So I will have some answers on those very, very soon. We're coming up with a seed mix, and that would be presented to county council or whoever at the time would make that decision. At this time, it seems very supportive by the state. So this might be something that we can incorporate later on down the road into these meadow programs with stipulations and for a year-to-year basis for a meadow to keep being reestablished as for mowing times to regenerate seed and to keep those meadows from having noxious weeds and trees in there. I believe it was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, we did have a meeting with Director Skuse up there, who was very supportive. So I think this would provide a lot of answers to some of these questions. I did talk to Department of Ag last week, and we should be on the road home on this here real soon.
Okay, great. Sounds good. It's encouraging. Okay, anything else?
Got a motion if no one has anything else.
Okay, Ms. Wingate?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reopen the record for subdivision 2023-14, change of zone number 2026, conditional use number 2499, and change of zone number 2025, all regarding Northstar Property, LLC, for the limited purpose of officially notifying the Cape Henlopen School District about these 4 applications and to receive any official written comment that the district may have concerning the applications. The record shall be held open until the close of business on August the 20th, 2024, for official written comment from the district on the applications. Then the record shall remain open until the close of business on September 4th, 2024, for written comment only from the applicant and the public, and limited solely to comments received from the district with respect to the applications.
I second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to hold the record open on change of zone number 2025, change of zone number 2026, subdivision 2023-14, and conditional use number 2499, all Northstar Property LLC, for the reasons and with the stipulations stated in the motion. Ms. Wingate, how do you vote?
Yes, for the reasons and conditions stated in the motion.
Mears?
Yes, for the reasons and conditions stated in the motion.
Collins?
Yes, for the reasons and conditions stated in the motion.
Butler?
Yes, for the reasons and conditions stated in the motion.
Chair votes yes for the reasons and conditions stated in the motion. Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Robertson, I think I know the answer to this question, but just for the benefit of the public, we have a clock running typically after our hearing closes. After the record closes, we have a certain number of days to make a decision. This reopening of the record resets that clock. So that clock will not start running until, what was the end date? The last date of...
August the 24th.
Well, the after that, because the public...
September the 4th.
Yeah.
So the clock doesn't start running until September the 4th. So this gives the commission ample time to consider the other things that we've talked about, and we'll have 45 days after that date to finally to make a decision. So, let's take our time and get it right. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen.